Good afternoon, everybody. It's been quite a while since I have filmed. Of course, I like to watch films, as everyone knows, um, and trying to get to watch as many films or TV shows when I can be quite difficult at times, but we get there in the end. So, yeah, today I am going to be talking not about a film, but about a TV show that is, as you would say at the moment, is as epic as watching a film. And I'm talking about Netflix's award-winning series, The Crown. Yeah, the third season has just finished. Annoyingly, we now have to wait a whole year until the fourth season. Um, so yeah, anybody who has been watching this, feel free to comment on it and say how amazing it is. And anyone who hasn't, watch this video as an education. So yeah. So for those who don't know, The Crown is a Netflix drama about the reigns of the royal family prior to Queen Elizabeth taking over, and it's supposed to transcend right up to now really, but of course each series is break into sections. So just just before I'll tell you what. We'll talk about season up through season. So the first season starts with King George V, played by Jared Harris. There was a film a few years back called The King's Speech with the excellent Colin Firth and Helen Bonham Carter as the Queen Mother. Now the most brilliant thing about that is you can watch The King's Speech, and then you can watch the first season of The Crown, although not related in any sense of who made it. But in terms of storyline, you can look at The King's Speech as a prequel, and then season one, The Crown, or at least the first couple of episodes. So yeah, it's been quite some time. King George V is dying. Of course, you might like to think there's spoilers in this as such. I know that a lot of people are spoilers conscious heavy. When it comes to historical fact, you can't really sort of say, "Oh, it's a spoiler alert." Oh, by the way, the Queen Mum dies. No, she does at some point because it's fact, So but let's cater to everyone's needs. So spoiler heavies and stuff like that. So yeah, King George V is dying. He's trying to keep it away from his family, because he's the king. And he knows that next in line is his daughter Elizabeth, who at this point at the start of The Crown, she's only 14, 15. You're thinking she's got it's too much of a burden to run the country. So sort of this is one of the most brilliant things about The Crown in itself, is how it deals with the reluctance of Queen Elizabeth wanting to become queen. Well, lots at the time, she was just known as Elizabeth. Elizabeth becoming queen. Big feel and big thing to feel. Considering she was happy to settle with the love of her life, Philip Mountbatten, Prince Philip to you and I. And so as it goes on, the King George V dies. So next in line is Queen Elizabeth. So she's thrust into the role, and it's I'm here. It's great, but what do I do? So sort of the majority of the first season is sort of her, becoming queen, familiarising herself. There's the coronation, which is the big spectacle of the first season. And of course, which will follow a trend in in each season, is that it's not just centered on the Queen; it's the other members of the royal family plus the prime ministers of the time. Um, you know, and what I think is quite good about these series of like these series and seasons of The Crown is that you've got different actors and actresses playing these key figures, and I think it's important that they do it because sort of like it captures like of each notion. I'm like, so the first two seasons, like you've got Claire Foy as the Queen, Olivia Colman is the current Queen, Prince Philip, played by Matt Smith in the first two seasons, now like Tobias Menzies. And I'll tell you about this Tobias Menzies fella. I've never seen him act prior to this, and I have to say he's a very darn good Prince Philip. He really portrays him like in a really good light, because you know, like you got Matt Smith in the first season, like first two seasons, like who portrays Prince Philip like in his like, I suppose like you could say like his late 20s, like 30s years, like sort of as the young, carefree, still, you know, on a navy ship and stuff like that. And whereas like you got like middle-aged Prince Philip played by Tobias Menzies, and sort of you can sort of like really see the classic put downs that he sort of like has had throughout like his life towards like certain people and like members, but at the same time sort of like there's still the youngness in him, and sort of I'm like so like throughout like of each season you've got the as you would say the prime ministers, you know, and what's actually quite clever as well is you really do learn a lot from this series, in terms of stuff like you might not know before, and that, and you can like pinpoint and say, oh okay, look, that was a lot of interesting. I honestly think The Crown should be shown in schools, quite possibly not primary schools as such, but I mean like secondary schools with sort of with caution, you know, like there are sort of scenes where sort of like there's a lot of, you know, like risque like material, but in terms of factual historical ways, show it in schools, show it in colleges, you know, because you really can learn a lot from this. You know, like there's stuff in textbooks you can read and whatnot, which is great, but sort of seeing it there depicted on the screen is really fantastic. And sort of I just think it's amazing how you could say how it's not always about sort of like I say like the royal family. It's and the prime ministers. It's key events that have happened throughout sort of time and that, and as time goes on, it will be shown more. So let's go back to season one. You know, Winston Churchill was still prime minister, played brilliantly, I have to say, by John Lithgow. John Lithgow, like you might know, like from like Footloose, like Santa Claus the movie, like Harry and the Hendersons. Just a complete tour de force of a character actor is for John Lithgow, and I actually think that quite possibly is his best role. You know, like there's a lot of episodes that are centered heavy on Winston Churchill for that. You know, and you know, it's common knowledge that Winston Churchill really didn't think much of Queen Elizabeth like to start. You know, like was prior like to being in charge. You know, like he was used to sort of answering to kings rather than queens. You know, and that's fair enough. You know, but then again, when Queen Elizabeth took charge, a lot of things changed, and that's what happened. So for that to have be in the course is quite incredible. A lot is centered on Queen Elizabeth's sister, Princess Margaret, who is a really interesting character, and of course in season 3, like she's portrayed by Helena Bonham Carter, who well, anybody who's seen like Helena Bonham Carter act is just quite incredible. And an interesting fact, going back to The King's Speech, like that film, like reference like from earlier, it was Helena Bonham Carter who portrayed the Queen Mother in that. So to portray the Queen Mother in that, to go to season 3 of The Crown to portray Princess Margaret is quite phenomenal. So, well, you know, you never know. Like they might sort of say, oh, well, you know, in season 4 or 5 you can portray someone else for that. So season 1, like, it pretty much covers sort of the familiarities of Elizabeth becoming queen, sort of like her duties, like her like reluctant duties, having to sort of adapt to this new life. So now, like, we move on to season 2, and a lot of season 2 dives straight into the personal relationships of members of the royal family. And that, so season 2, it's still Claire Foy and Locke and Matt Smith. Like, there's a couple of episodes that are centered on Prince Philip's childhood, which I've really found a lot of interest in, because like, a lot of people know about the Queen's life prior to the Crown, but not many people knew what happened with Prince Philip, like, and his childhood and that. You know, to say that Prince Philip had a easy childhood is a understatement. You know, like the Mountbattens have been controversial figures throughout life. You know, please Google that. You know, I really don't want like to get into their sort of lifestyles, and it is quite murky as it is. But what I do find quite fascinating is sort of like the relationships that not only Philip and Elizabeth have with themselves, it's relationships like with their children. You know, Prince Charles being morphed into the man like they is today. You know, it's all different in that. So like I say, like, so season 2 centres mostly around the personal like relationships of members of the royal family. And now, like, we move on to season 3. Like, so season 3 is where there's the big change all around in terms of cast. In season 1 and 2, like I say, you got Claire Foy as Elizabeth and Matt Smith as Prince Philip. They did brilliantly portraying them to you know, like, their part in this series like will not be forgotten. So moving on to season 3, we've got a new queen, and it's quite funny like how they do the like the introduction. It's about a good 10 minutes into the first episode before you actually see Olivia Colman's face as Queen Elizabeth, and it's like how they used to introduce the new James Bond in films, you know, and it feels a bit like this, you know, like same character, different actor, but it's what you bring to the role, and it's really quite interesting, like, because sort of like, I think like the time jump between season 2 and season 3 is maybe about 2 or 3 years. So sort of, you know, like the Queen, you know, like she's sort of saying, oh, you know, I feel a lot older, I'm still in charge, but this burden is really dragging me down, I'd rather do something else and stuff like that. And then sort of you got Tobias Menzies, as I said, as Prince Philip. You know, I said earlier that sort of like he's middle aged now himself. He's sort of more accustomed to the withering put downs he gives people like in real life, but still has that playful sense of wanting the zest of life. And like I say, like Helena Bonham Carter as Prince Margaret. You know, Prince Margaret, you would say in this season she catapults herself, I'd say, in terms of action and sort of actual doing stuff, second billing to Queen Elizabeth like in this season, like, whereas like in season 1 and 2, like she had the odd episode where it sort of said like she was sort of still a background character. Now she's like boom. I mean, there's one season, there's one episode in season 3 where she and her husband go to dinner at President Lyndon Johnson's house to sort of broker a deal to give money to lots of the US and lots of the UK, and she does it best by being Princess Margaret. You know, for a lot of people, like you might not know, Princess Margaret in her life, like her character. So, well, I say her character, like her persona. You know, like she was sort of the party girl. You know, like the life and the soul. Like, whereas like Queen Elizabeth has always been sort of the I would say the prim and proper lady, sort of. You know, like she still has like a wild side, I'm sure, but sort of like she'd rather not show it. Whereas like whereas Princess Margaret always was sort of in the papers a lot of time for the wrong reasons rather than the right reasons. But you know, like she wins over like the president of the US, like Lyndon Johnson, to give money to us by literally like just like drinking him under the table, and it worked. Another thing that's really essential to season 3 is the emergence from young man to adult of Prince Charles. You know, like for the first couple of seasons, like you don't see Prince Charles; he's just like referenced, and when you see him like for the first time like, as an adult, the actor who plays him, I really can't remember like his name, Log Laval, like who's that? But I know him from a show called The Durrells. His role in that show was always good, but him playing Prince Charles, I think, is the best thing that like this young actor has ever done. He really captures Prince Charles's mannerisms completely. It's just wow. So sort of like the first top centre episode of Prince Charles, he's well, as people know, Prince Charles also goes by another name, the Prince of Wales, and it's centred around that, like him becoming the real proper Prince of Wales. And of course, if we're just about to rewind back to history, Prince Charles's mother, Queen Elizabeth's father's brother, like her uncle, King Edward, abdicated the throne prior to Elizabeth's dad getting it. So that's why Lucky got the gig. Was exiled like to another country because like his government would not petition a divorce to a marriage like to a divorcee, which was always a big no in not only in the Catholic Church but in terms of our government and whatnot. So therefore, he was supposed to be the Prince of Wales, never actually fully fulfilled it. So now, for the first time in a long time, we've got a proper Prince of Wales. So fast forward back to that, he goes to a university in Wales and learns Welsh for his coronation speech. And in a way, that episode had a bit of the King's Speech to it. You know, like for those who are familiar with the film The King's Speech would know what I'm talking about. So sort of that ends with Prince Charles sort of getting that, but he feels like an outcast to his family. You know, like I say, I didn't realise how Queen Elizabeth felt towards like her son Charles, and like to this day, sort of it's that like their relationship has definitely changed, but I do feel as though that sort of like she never sort of felt, although like you're the heir to the throne, I don't really see you as heir to the throne just by title only. So the next lot of episodes, we're introduced to a character that would shape a lot of our royalist history, Camilla Parker Bowles and Charles. So this is sort of, as you would say, the beginning of the relationship, or the beginning of knowing one another. For those who don't know, Prince Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in 1981. But throughout their marriage, Charles still had a thing for a woman known as Camilla Parker Bowles, who he knew before Diana Spencer. Long story short, he did the dirty, they divorced, and many years later Charles not married him. Not married himself, obviously. Married to Camilla Parker Bowles, but in terms of the here and now, in terms of the storyline of the Crown, it's to now, where we're at the beginning of their relationship, and just completely fascinating how these things go in. One special mention to an episode in season 3 of The Crown, which I would have to say in all the episodes there have been, I think this one is the most important one of all. I can't remember the name of it. It was something Welsh, but it was about a tragedy in a Welsh mining village, where everything just in a Welsh mining village, these families lost all their children in a big coal avalanche, and sort of it's all about sort of personal tragedy coming to everything, and how everything is sorted. So yeah, it's a real tough one, that is. But like I say, watch that episode. You know, even if you don't know anything about the Crown, I think it's the best episode that's not centered around sort of Elizabeth or the royal family, even though they do feature. It's sort of to that. And what I always find, if you watch stuff like 2012 or Independence Day or The Day After Tomorrow, yes, they are disaster films, but they're sort of fake things. When you see stuff that actually happens, sort of a real actual personal tragedy depicted on screen, like for instance this episode I'm talking about, or the film The Impossible, the tsunami, anything with 9/11, actual real proper personal tragedy that actually happened in real life. When you watch it depicted on screen, you sort of think, wow, they went through that and we didn't. So it's quite hard to comprehend. So I've prattled on around about enough, about the Crown. What I do say is, go watch it. I think the Crown is amazing. It's so good you actually forget you're watching a TV show. Each episode is like a mini film. It's an hour long, each episode. So sort of there's 10 episodes per season. So all in all, there's 30 episodes. So 30 brilliant films, you could say. And what's more, there's more to come, like I say. So in a year's time, I'll do a recap and a preview / review of season 4. I cannot wait. Anybody wants to leave any comments, please do so below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and please go watch The Crown. I really think that you will enjoy it, so please do. Thank you very much. Bye bye.